Okay guys, so I'm out here with the SLX DC mounted on the SLX rod. Looks pretty sick. And we're going to talk about my experience fishing this combo for the past few months using my favorite line of choice, which is pure fluorocarbon. But before we do that, we're going to have a little bit of fun and we're going to see if this SLX DC is waterproof. Now, I've done a similar test to the CURADO DC in the past where I took the side plate that has the DC unit and I dropped it in the water for like 10 seconds and it seemed to work. But in all actuality, since all the brake controls are on the outside, you really never have to open up the side plate unless you just want to take the spool out. So we're going to do something a little bit different and we're going to dunk this whole reel in the water and see if that affects anything. Now I'm doing this because I had a subscriber comment that he had dropped his, I think his entire METANIUM DC in the water and left it there overnight, came back, somehow found it in the lake, got it out, and it still worked perfectly. So here we go. So I think I'm going to leave it in the water for a good, I don't know what, I think 10 seconds, maybe 15 or 20 should be enough. Here we go. All right, hopefully you guys can see that. I see a bunch of bubbles coming out. So I'm going to try to drain any kind of water that got in there. Okay, let's see if this thing still works. All right, I'm going to tie a lure on. It's this little jerk bait. All right. Okay, so we're going to start with the number 4 mode. And let's see what happens. Still works, guys. You heard the DC whine. The lure didn't go out there that far because this is the strongest braking mode. So let's go through all the different modes. Hopefully they were not affected. Let's go to the fluorocarbon mode, which is 3. Works perfectly. And it is jerkbait season. So I'm gonna bring this in and see if I can catch a fish. Okay, so let's go to the braid mono mode, see if it works. Yep, it still works. Went out there a long way. It's kind of cold out here. I kind of wish I just dropped the side plate in the water instead of the whole damn reel, because anyway. All right, so extreme distance mode, or mode number 1. Now, I'm not really going to sling this out there that hard because I don't want to blow this spool up, but let's see if that works. Still works. You hear the DC song or DC whine that it makes. So there you go, guys. SLX DC, completely watertight, and I wouldn't recommend doing this, but you know, a lot of you guys who kayak fish or surf fish, or you're just clumsy on your boat and you kick shit over in the water, know that you can dunk this entire reel in the water and it'll be fine. Okay, so now that we've established that the SLX DC is pretty waterproof, let's talk about my experience actually fishing this reel with my preferred line of choice, which is pure fluorocarbon. Now, I've been fishing this reel with 14-pound Yozuri pure fluorocarbon, And while it's a great line, it's definitely no Sunline Sniper. It has a lot of memory, it's very stiff, but it's very affordable. That's why I chose it. So let me show you how this reel casts with fluorocarbon using the actual fluorocarbon mode, which is 3. So once again, I got this little 3/8 ounce jerkbait Yozuri, ironically, and let me show you what this SLX DC can do. All right, so it chucked that out there a good, I would say, at least almost 40 yards. No problem with the spool. And of course, we're going to have a lot of these people in the comment section who are going to say, well, you know, no duh, fluorocarbon line and fluorocarbon mode is supposed to be fished together. Now, keep in mind, these are people who have never seen a DC reel in their entire life, and they want to act like they know it all and tell someone who's owned almost 10 DC reels how DC reels work. So we're going to call these people no experience know-it-alls. All right, one more cast. Boom. So as you can see, the spool was perfectly controlled. And of course, there's some wind to my back, and that does help. But let me show you why this is so significant and why this is kind of a revelation, and this applies to the CURADO DC as well. Now, the reason why that's such a big deal is this right here. Now, with fluorocarbon line, using the fluorocarbon mode, you can actually set the spool tension how Shimano recommends it, which is tightening it down just to eliminate the side-to-side movement. So if you can see, it's a pretty fast fall. Now, if you recall, with the CURADO DC and even the SLX DC, using mono in mono mode was pretty 50-50. Half the time it would cast fine, half the time it would blow up. So you had to actually tighten down that spool tension to get the mono mode to behave. And that's very un-DC like, and people who actually own multiple DC reels know what I'm talking about. So yeah, with fluorocarbon line and not the best casting fluorocarbon, the SLX DC can definitely handle it in fluorocarbon mode. And that's one thing that I judge a good braking system on, is how it handles stiff, heavier fluorocarbon that doesn't cast great. All right, one more cast. Oh, had a little overrun there, but nothing that I couldn't pick out easily. So there you go, guys. SLX DC with fluorocarbon and fluorocarbon mode. It actually feels like a DC reel to me now. Okay, so now we're going to see how this fluorocarbon mode casts lighter lures, and lures that, you know, tend to tumble through the air and catch wind. And it's real windy today. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but here's a little Duo Realis 57, and it just stuck the shit out of my finger. These are some sticky, sharp hooks. Wow, that hurt. Anyway, this is a Duo Realis Rosante. I think it's a 63, or I believe it is a 63. So it weighs about 3/16 of an ounce. We'll see how this SLX DC with fairly heavy fluorocarbon, in my opinion, handles this lighter lure in fluorocarbon mode. Handles it perfectly. So that's your DC brakes for you. Keep in mind, this is a pretty stiff rod, medium heavy 7-foot Shimano SLX, and I'll have to say, paired together, it does not feel that comfortable to me. The SLX DC, of course, is bigger than the standard SLX, so I don't find this combo that comfortable. Okay, final test is a lure that is fairly light. It's a 3/16 ounce spinnerbait, so the overall weight of this lure is probably like half an ounce. But how will this SLX DC in fluorocarbon mode handle a lure that tumbles through the air, has a lot of appendages and blades that catch wind? And let's see what happens. Perfect. Launched this spinnerbait a long way. Zero issues with the spool. All right, as you can see, it launches this spinnerbait a pretty good distance. Zero issues on the spool with the line control. All right, one more cast on the spinnerbait. Perfect spool control. Okay, so let's talk about the retrieve on this SLX DC. Now, this is not the biggest spinnerbait and it doesn't have the biggest blades, but I'm pulling it with the extra high gear 8.5:1 gear ratio, and it is pretty effortless. And the retrieve on the SLX DC has actually gotten smoother the more I use it. I know that the CURADO DC has got the micro gears, but I'm telling you, it's not that much smoother than this SLX DC. Now, Shimano's were always smooth before micro gears, and this is just one of those reels that proves that point. It's very smooth, very effortless, a lot of power. So yeah, there we go, SLX DC, fishing fluorocarbon in fluorocarbon mode. Definitely makes this feel like a more traditional DC reel when it comes to the casting dynamics, spool control, etc. All right, guys, I know Black Friday is coming up and a lot of you guys are probably eyeballing this SLX, and I would say for the price, 190 bucks, it is definitely the one to beat at that price point. So as I said earlier, I've been fishing the SLX DC for a few months now using fluorocarbon line in the fluorocarbon mode. And one thing I forgot to emphasize was that the casting distance was still pretty long. And that's kind of remarkable because in the other DC systems like the METANIUM DC, ANTARES DC, and Scorpion DC, the fluorocarbon mode is noticeably shorter than the other line modes when it comes to casting distance. Now with the SLX DC and the CHRONARCH DC, the fluorocarbon mode is not that far off of the braid mono mode when it comes to just sheer distance. Now here's a couple of fish that I caught and the reel performed flawlessly. I didn't have to thumb the spool during the cast at all, and I rarely saw an overrun. And no matter what type of lure I used, the results were still the same. So that's my report fishing the SLX DC, and I have a couple of more videos I need to make on it, so stay tuned for that. Alright guys, thanks a lot.